Welcome into Texans Today, everybody. I'm your host, Jeremy Chuggs, and coming up on today's program, a full preview of Texans versus Colts, a very pivotal Week 8 matchup, as we'll get into later on in the program, but this might be a must-win game for your Houston Texans, and I'm going to tell you why. But before we get into that, we have our weekly promotion. Predict the score of Texans versus Colts down in the comment section right now. And if you get it correct, you'll get a free raffle entry for our live show on Sunday. Now, I don't know if I was clear enough this past week with the rules of this, but one, you have to get in your prediction before the game. So if you're watching this and the game hasn't started yet, which I don't know why you'd watch this after the game, but if you're watching this before the game starts, get in your prediction right now. And part two is you have to be there on our live show during the raffle. So that's how I know that you can get a free raffle ticket. So put the prediction down in the comment section. If you get it right and you're watching our live show this Sunday, which will be live for a Texans versus Colts watch party, then you'll get a free raffle entry. Now let's talk about this game, because I'm thinking this is going to be a must-win game for your Houston Texans if they want to secure the division down the road. And I know what you're saying, Jeremy. You've said multiple times that this division is going to be, a cakewalk for the Texans, that it's almost a foregone conclusion that the Texans are going to win this division, which I still think more likely than not the Texans are going to win. But Colts are one game back. If we lose to the Colts, we've got the same record as the Indianapolis Colts. And then at that point, we got to take care of business, and so do the Colts. The problem in there lies that the Colts have a much easier schedule down the road than the Texans do. These are the final 5 games that the Colts have this year. At the Patriots, at the Broncos, the Titans, the Giants, and the Jags. All very winnable games if you're looking at it from the Indianapolis Colts point of view. All 5 of these games, the Colts might be favored. Maybe not up against the Broncos in Denver, but the rest of these games, they might be favored to win 4 out of these 5 games. And then you turn over to the Texans' final 5 games of the schedule. You play at the Jacksonville Jaguars, which is a division game, so yeah, it's not, the toughest, but these 3 games right here, Dolphins, which they've been bad, but they have Tua Tagovailoa, who's going to be back this week, and barring injury, he'll be playing with a much more high-powered offense against the Texans in Week 15. You play the Chiefs at Arrowhead in Week 16, and 4 days later on Christmas, you're playing the Ravens. Not a cakewalk of a schedule for the Houston Texans down the road. So I'm saying this right now. The Texans can mess around and give this division up. I still think, regardless, the Texans very well could get, a wild card spot if they don't win the division. And like I said earlier, more than likely than not, I think the Texans will win this division. But it's not going to be one where that's going to be handed to you. It's not going to be a division where you can sleepwalk through this schedule. The Texans are going to have to prove themselves this season and prove that they're a good football team. And when they played good football teams this year, not shown up against the Vikings, up against the Packers. Both really good teams. The Texans did not look good in both of those games. So I ask you this, the pinned comment on today's video. Is this a must-win game up against the Indianapolis Colts on Sunday? You'll have the lead over them in the division, and barring a tiebreaker at the end, you'll have 2 wins over the Colts at the end of the year. Let me know your thoughts. Is this a must-win game? Am I overreacting? Go down in the comment section. If you get hit with the YouTube ad break, perfect timing. Scroll on down and let me know your thoughts. So let's get into the injury reports here for the Texans and the Colts. And reminder, I'm actually filming this Wednesday night. So these are the injury reports after the Wednesday practices. And I know it's a little bit small on screen right now, but the guys that are missing for the Texans right now, Jimmie Ward's not going to be playing. Robert Woods isn't going to be playing. Steven Sims isn't going to be playing. Azeez Al-Shaair did not practice either. Some guys who were limited, Will Anderson. Kamari Lassiter was back at practice. So was Henry To'o. Laramie Tunsil. As We know he's usually limited on Wednesdays. But, some promising signs there for the Texans injury report. Some names that you don't see, obviously. Christian Harris, still not activated off of IR. Same can be said about Jeff Okudah. So some guys there that aren't going to be returning. The Colts have some guys that might be returning themselves. DeForest Buckner was limited today. He's missed some time. Same with Jonathan Taylor. Two key guys for the Indianapolis Colts who might return this week up against the Houston Texans. So something that you all have to monitor throughout the week as the Texans and Colts release their injury reports after each day of practice. Coming up in just a moment, I have the keys to victory up against the Indianapolis Colts. But first, got to tell you about our amazing sponsor of today's show, Ollie. It is amazing. And I know if you have a dog out there, if you love your little pup, you got to listen up right here. Because today's episode is brought to you by Ollie, clean, fresh nutrition for your dogs. Right now, Ollie is offering a fantastic deal to let your little pup test a personalized meal plan. Get 60% off your first box of meals when you use promo code CHATSPORTS at ollie.com. In 5 flavors they'll absolutely love. You don't have to be a vet to know that feeding your dog real, whole foods with minimal processing is one of the best choices you can make for their health. Here's how it works. Fill out Ollie's 30-second quiz, and they'll create a customized meal plan. Ollie then crunches the numbers and recommends the right recipes and daily portions for your little pup. For any first-timers, Ollie will send out your pup's first box with 2 weeks' worth of meals and a guide of how to gradually switch them over to their new diet. Customize your plan. Ollie offers 3 meal plans to choose from, so you can choose between a full fresh plan, fresh topper plan, or a mixed plan with their freshly baked recipes. Now, my little pup Sadie, she absolutely ate this up. I mean, she was scarfing it down. She was yum, 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 like Kobayashi. She was loving Ollie's food. And I mean, look at her. She's absolutely loving it. I mean, I didn't even get a chance to open the bag yet, and she was already like, what is this? Put it in my belly. I want it. She was absolutely going ham over Ollie, which is funny because I fed her the chicken one. So, but I promise you, if I am willing to give my little girl, my Sadie girl, my Whooshy, my pup, if I'm willing to give her Ollie, then you should be willing and be, trustworthy enough to say, hey, Ollie, I'll let you give my dog some food as well. So head over to ollie.com, tell them all about your dog, and use code CHATSPORTS, and you'll get 60% off your first box of meals when you subscribe today. Head over to ollie.com and enter code CHATSPORTS to get 60% off your first box. They offer a clean bowl guarantee on their first box, so if you're not completely satisfied, you can get your money back. Now, let's look at the Texans' keys to victory up against the Indianapolis Colts. I got 5 of them for you. The first one, O-line, step it the bleep up. Do it. I mean, come on. That was a piss-poor performance up against the Packers. That was a performance that the next day, the next couple of days when you're in the film room, you should have your heads down. You should have your heads down because you know, like a bad puppy who's shit in the house, that you messed up. All 5 of you. Laremy Tunsil, Kenyon Green, Juice Scruggs, Shaq Mason, Titus Howard, you failed this past Sunday up against the Packers. A big fat F. A fail-a-roni. You played horrible. And the thing that I noticed the most, the thing that kind of stood out when I watched the film, I watched the All-22 up against the Packers, the blitz pickup between the O-line and the running backs was flat out unacceptable. They play Agumbawale a ton, and, he's been good in spurts for the Texans, but I don't want to put it all in the O-line. I think this might be also kind of a scheme issue with the Houston Texans because on multiple occasions, not 1, not 2, not even 3, multiple occasions throughout that Packers game, there was miscommunication on who's taking who. I saw Agumbawale and Laremy Tunsil take the same guy. I saw the guys on the interior, Juice Scruggs, Shaq Mason, taking the same guy. And they just let runners free to C.J. Stroud, where he was running all over the place up against the Packers on Sunday. And that's not how you're going to win football games. It's unacceptable performance for this offense. So if you want to win up against good defenses, good teams, the O-line, the pass protection needs to step it up. Number 2, you got to feed Mixon. And it kind of goes with the O-line as well. I think they need to run block a lot better because Mixon was absolutely bailing them out up against the Packers. I mean, I think the stat was, yards until he got touched up against the Green Bay Packers, it was under 2. I mean, he was getting hit in the backfield repeatedly and having to make guys miss at the line of scrimmage to even get 3-4 yards up against the Packers. Now, he ended up with, over 100 yards, but he had 3 rushes that went over, I believe, 60 yards, 2.4 yards per carry if you take out those 3 rushes up against the Packers. This dude was absolutely feasting, though, given the circumstances and given the run blocking that he was given to. So I say continue to feed Mixon, especially with Nico Collins out. He should be one of the focal points of your offense. You got to feed the running back. You got to feed Joe Mixon up against this Colts team. Number 3, you got to make Richardson beat you. You got to make him beat you inside the pocket. You can't let him run, but if you're going to let him drop back 20, 30 times in the pocket and throw the ball around, good. Because he has been bad throwing the ball. Have you seen any highlights from Richardson this year inside the pocket trying to deliver balls? It ain't pretty, Jim. 48.5 completion percentage, 780 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions this year. He's been bad. He's been playing out bad. And I had a conversation with guys in the office of who has a more likely chance of turning it around, Anthony Richardson or Bryce Young. The answer was Anthony Richardson, but it's only because of his size and his ability to run the ball. Nothing to do with his throwing because he's got a good arm. He's like a pitcher who can throw 100 yards or 100 miles per hour, but for the life of him cannot hit that strike zone. He is awful with his down the field accuracy. So you got to make Richardson beat you in the pocket if you want to win on Sunday. Another one, kind of going with the Richardson beat of making him throw the ball, you got to stop the interior run if you're the Houston Texans. You got to make sure in between the tackles, especially if they have Jonathan Taylor back, you got to stop the run up the middle. The Packers, whenever they started kind of moving the ball, getting their offense going, they were able to run in between the tackles. Josh Jacobs, little chat stats for you, had 76 rushing yards up against the Houston Texans. 52 of those yards came running in between the guards. Not outside, not running it outside, but running it up the middle. So if you take away that, if you're taking away the rushes up the middle, this defense is a lot better. They have guys who can run sideline to sideline. But you got to control the line of scrimmage. You got to make sure that they're not blowing you off the ball, getting 5-6 yards up the middle. You can't let that happen if you're the Houston Texans, especially with the Colts who are going to try to do a run-heavy style of offense. And lastly, you got to limit penalties. They actually didn't do too bad up against the Packers this past week. They actually had 3 less penalties than the Green Bay Packers did this past Sunday. But the penalties came in inopportune times for the Houston Texans. And I think this offense, between not being able to block the blitzes, block the stunts, and then penalties at inopportune times, they end up shooting themselves in the foot quite a bit. And that goes, a couple times on defense as well this past week. So you can't shoot yourself in the foot. You can't let the Colts into this game with stupid penalties. You got to play sound, disciplined football, and you got to win at the line of scrimmage if you're the Houston Texans, if you want to pull out a dub this weekend up against the Indianapolis Colts. So quick reminder, I will be live on Sunday, Texans, Colts, a AFC South divisional matchup, a very important matchup, and as I said in the beginning of the video, a must-win for your Houston Texans. So be there, be loud, and let's root on our Houston Texans this weekend as the Texans hopefully take down the Colts at NRG and take control of the division.